Moment with Dr. G. I am so excited that you can join me tonight. I'm looking forward to a really great conversation. And of course, I have my none other than my amazing sidekick over here, the wonderful Senna, who has who has decided to join her mother's drinking her mother's Kool-Aid. Yeah. So welcome everyone. Can you believe it? We're finishing up quarter 3 in 2023. So I want to just thank everybody who's joined us, who even if you're watching it later, I know that you're going to have an amazing time hearing some of the things that I've been pondering about. So hopefully you're catching us either on YouTube, on Facebook, on our pages. So if you can keep an eye out for those who might be tuning in and watching us, and drop us a word, drop us a line. Just tell us what you think about what we're sharing. And just do share the page also, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to get the word out there that there's something always to be empowered about. So I am so glad that the 9 months in this Jubilee year, I call it my Jubilee year, I get to celebrate my birthday all year. All year. I am looking forward to a great time with two of my girlfriends who are also turning into their Jubilee year this year, and where the location is not going to be disclosed. I just know that God is just making room for us to continue to celebrate life. So tonight's topic, I'm calling it's called the 7 C's in resiliency. 7 C's in resiliency. And if you've been listening to me or or ever spoken to me, one of my absolute favorite words, and I think it describes me now, I was reflecting on it earlier today, and is the word resilient. I have talked about it in many forms, many ways. So earlier I was reading an article and I wanted to share some of the things I learned from it. And as I was talking about it, I was like, okay, if you had one word to describe yourself, mine is resilient. What word would that be? So if you're listening to me, write it out there. Well, what is one word people will use to describe you? So I'm going to put you on a spot. What's one word that you will use to define yourself or describe yourself?
Oh, let's see. Probably, I would say, I want to say like optimistic. I try to see the positive, but it's like a balance between optimism and realism where I'm like, okay, like trying to see the best in every situation, but then
Yeah.
also like, let's look at the facts. So I'd say a good balance. I know that's 2 words, but
Yeah, no, I absolutely see you as that, both optimistic and realistic. And I think that's really crucial that one can use words to describe ourselves and then let it be that, right? So I want to just make sure that people are able to hear, see, and also reflect on what's one word that we use to describe you. I just decided, I was like, resiliency it is, because I'm seeing time and time again getting hit with some disappointment and looking at how I can bounce back. And that's really one of the crucial pieces of my personal life. I want to welcome Jean that just joined us in the Zoom room. Welcome. I'm so
Hi,
glad. I'm so glad you could be here tonight, Ms. Jean.
thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. So we were talking about one word that may be used to describe us, one word that may be used to describe you. I just said mine is resiliency or resilient. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so reflect on that for a minute. What word would you use to describe yourself?
Uh, oh God, what's the word for somebody who doesn't give up?
Ah, that's almost that too, resilient. Perseverance. Somebody who
Perseverance.
persevere.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because you are so spot on that in life, if you have the mindset of what Senna has, which is optimism,
Mm-hmm.
you always look for the other side of things, right? And not give up and not
That's
throw
right.
in the towel. So I have somebody else called Mikal also join us in the Zoom room. Welcome. So glad you could be here tonight.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about what's one word that may be used to describe you. I said mine is resilient. Ms. Jean said hers is perseverance, never giving up. Senna is like optimism / realism, being realistic. So think of one word. I know you just jumped in. I don't want to put you on the spot. So you can reflect.
The first thing that comes to mind is consistency.
Consistency. Wow. I am just loving
That's awesome.
tonight. Consistency. Yeah. I really, really think there's power in this community, and they need to be persevere, and it needs to be resilient, and it needs to be persistent, and it needs to be optimistic. And so these are all the words that people are using to describe. So if you're watching us online, type in what's one word that'll be used to describe you. And I love the fact that each one of us took a positive word, right? Because sometimes we dwell in the negativity and allow that to kind of overwhelm us. But here we're thinking about words that are reflective of who we are, right? And so when I was thinking about the word resilient for myself, one of the things that I thought about, and earlier today, I was posting on my WhatsApp status, and I was saying, I'm excited to talk about this topic tonight. And what are some of the keys or some of the words? And all I know is that one word out of resilience that I would say I've learned to do is pivot. Pivot. And a perfect example, obviously, my goal as an organization is really a storyline of pivoting for me, right? But beyond that, when COVID happened, we all went hibernating, right, in 2020. And that was in March. And it was a month out from when we were supposed to have our Bowling for Autism event. And that's a major fundraising event that we use to support families across the continental United States that we help, right? And so everybody was trying to figure out what the heck to do. People were canceling their events left and right. But cancellation is not in my vocabulary, if I can help it. It's called pivot. It's called pivot. Look for another door, look for a window, look for sidewalks, look for something else, because God gave you that grace, he's going to make a way, right?
That's right.
So, and I remember Senna, you were there when we were brainstorming, what could we do? And they're like, why don't we have a virtual bowl-a-thon? We went on and did a virtual bowl. People were like, what? That was way before virtual became virtual, like the way it is now, right? And we did a virtual bowl-a-thon and raised more money that year. We did all the previous years that we were doing it live. We went on, at a time, we were raising money to give grants to families. And at the time, we were doing 10 grand. 10 families were selected to get $1,000 each. Because of that event that year, we went on to double that to 20 families getting $20,000 from this organization. Yeah. And then from there, we've gone on. So now we do 25 families each year that gets $1,000 each. And these are families that have profound need. Sometimes the individuals, Senna, maybe you can even tell us one or two stories out of the reviewer. So my daughter, Senna, is the person who gets to hang out with some of these families, and from the standpoint of contacting them, reviewing the applications, and reading the stories that we have a whole grant committee. So just so everybody who's listening to me knows, we have a team of people who have committed to reviewing all the applications that we get from across the country. And so Senna is on the admin end of that once the committee decides, and there's about 9 people on the committee who are impartial and use a rubric to assess what the degree of the need, the stories we're hearing from the families, what they're going to use the money for. So we just finished our grant cycle earlier this year. And so Senna, maybe if you can just 1 or 2 stories of the families that we've supported this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share 2 quick stories. One of the families that we ended up supporting, and the kids he ended up helping was Anthony. And his family had applied to help give him a grant for a summer enrichment program. He's 6 years old and has an amazing family that loves him. And the grant will help to finance his enrichment program to help with assisting in goals for improving his interpersonal skills, language skills, and then some of his fine and gross motor skills.
Yeah.
And then we had another individual, Ethan, who's also an amazing little boy. He loves going outside and also really enjoys anything that has wheels. And the grant will be helping to cover some of his speech and occupational therapy costs. So those are just some of the stories from this year. We've helped so many kids in the past. I remember there was one girl from last year who had a really hard time making friends, and she found a camp that she was able to really feel comfortable with. And the grant was able to help to send her back again, and it really helped her to feel comfortable and move outside of her shell. So the grant is so helpful and impactful and really helping to support families for the needs of their kids. So
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So sometimes we've even funded people getting a bed, a fence for the house for children that elope. So, and why did we do that, right? So I'm incredibly blessed that I have a job, a daytime job that can allow me to get the basics of things of life, right? But the reality is I'm also taking care of a special needs individual who has a lot of needs. But I have health insurance. My health insurance can cover some of these things, but there are people whose health insurance don't cover it, who are really, really struggling. And that's one of the reasons why we established this organization to support families facing autism and other intellectual disabilities. And we do that by providing the supports, grants, monetary grants, and also have events that we pay for people to attend, right? So when we do these fundraisers, it's really just so that it becomes a mechanism or a way to really give back. And so I just shared those two quick stories because during that season, I was thinking, oh man, we're going to have to cancel this event. And we sat down and we're like, no, we're going to have to find a way. Where there's a way, where there's a will, there's a way. And truthfully, we went from able to double what we were doing. Why? Because we just did something called pivoting. We pivoted, we got creative. And the reality is that when you face a challenge, you're more likely to want to look at creative solutions. And, unless your back is really against the wall, sometimes you're just like, okay, well, I'll just try again. No, but when you really, 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 truly have a need, you're going to find a way to just figure it out, right? We figure things out. If you talk to families that have special needs kids, we figure things out. Or even if you're somebody who's a caregiver, you're going to figure it out. So my point here is that pivoting is part of resiliency. So while I was thinking about this topic tonight, I was like, okay, what is the definition of resiliency? And the dictionary defines it as the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, right? So the capacity. So while I was Googling that, I came across an article that was written, and it can be found on pathfinders.org. And they were talking about this physician that wrote define resiliency. And I kind of really liked what he had to say. He's called Dr. Kenneth Ginsberg, and he's a pediatrician who specializes in adolescent medicine at the Children's Hospital right here in Philadelphia. And he's also a professor of pediatrics at the University at UPenn School of Medicine. And he had this components of what he calls of components of resiliency. And the point there is that, and he's written books. One of his books is called Building Resilience in Children and Teens. Building resilience in children and teens. And he defines it as giving kids roots and wings, giving them roots and wings. And I'm like, wow, I love that, because we as parents are called to give our kids roots and wings. So when we're no longer there, they can fly and they will have roots that can stand and withstand the storms of life. And he also wrote a book called Balancing Love with Expectation and Protection with Trust. So you're giving the two books that he wrote by this man, and he gave some components, 7 components of the 7 C's in resiliency. And so I want to share a little bit of that and just kind of remind us of why God is making me share this story tonight, because I had a different topic that I said, well, I was going to talk about tonight. But when I was reflecting upon my own personal life and what I will define myself as, that's what led me here. And so I thought this would be a good one to share. So if you're listening, these are the 7 C's. He talks about the 7 C's of resiliency as competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. The 7 C's: competence, confidence, connection, character, where's the other one? Contribution, coping, and control. And so when I was reading this article on this website, it was talking about raising children and ensuring that they have these 7 C's as means of developing resiliency. So I'm going to share some of the elements of it. And I think as parents, and as I'm talking about it, I want you to think about yourself too. I want you to think about, how am I building resiliency in myself, and then how do I transfer those skills to my children, right? Because that's really, really, really important. And so the competency piece is teaching your child how to, competency means teach your child how to handle challenging situations on your own. They're going to face challenges. They're going to face that person on the in the cafeteria who's going to try to, push them around. These children have to learn that, you know what, I can stand up on my own. Mm-hmm. Children have to develop a sense of competence, and you have to let them be able to make their own decisions and help them to do things independently. Allow them to grow independence, help them to grow their wings so they can thrive. That's what Dr. Ginsburg said, right? And so that's the first point, competence, helping them to be able to have a sense of, I can do this. I can stand. Yeah. Number 2, confidence. So the goal here is to develop kids who are competent and confident, and confidence is similar, but it's also helping them to believe in themselves. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to navigate this world, think creatively, and recover from all setbacks. They need that ability to say, because guess what? They're going to face one setback or the other. Mm-hmm. We have to tell them that. You have to tell them that people are going to disappoint them. Yeah. They're going to have to find a way to do this on your own. So that's how you build confidence. So when somebody knows that I have to do it myself. I love the scripture that says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You can love your neighbor unless you love yourself. Yep. So the self is first so that you can love your neighbor. So it is building that confidence in ourselves. Listen, I tell people when it's my birthday, I'm singing happy birthday to myself. I'm not waiting for somebody to call me and tell me happy birthday.
That's right.
Buy yourself a cake and cut yourself that cake and say, ooh, happy birthday to me. And if you really want an audience, go look at yourself in the mirror and start singing. Guess what? There's somebody singing with you.
But listen, every day is a birthday to me.
Every day is a birthday. That's what Jesus says. Every day is a birthday. Right. I agree. So, but my point is that sometimes we're waiting for other people to clap for us. Clap for yourself. Just like you did a great job. Pat yourself in the back, right? That's great. So that's how we build confidence. So we talked about competence. We talked about confidence. The third one is connection. That's why my goal exists. We exist to make connections. Connection is important. So teaching your child to develop a sense of security that comes from being a part of a community, building healthy relationships, being part of friends, being part of a family, having a faith community is so, so, so important, because when you're down, you're going to have other people to lift you up. They will share a word. And isn't it great when you get a text from somebody that says, oh, I was thinking about you. Mm-hmm. Right? Or I was praying for you. It is so awesome. I've had somebody the other day, I out of the blue, I had somebody who sent through the mail a self-care kit, had all this amazing stuff in it. And it just came, she said, I was just thinking about you. And so I sent that to you. And I was like, oh my, that was just so awesome. But that came from being a part of community, being a part of friendships, people who care about you. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you're in a friends group that is toxic, you need to get out of there and form new groups. You don't allow yourself to be in an environment where it is not good for you, right? So remember, the sense of security and connectedness gives that child the strong foundation and supportive network that they need. So resiliency comes from the place of belonging. You are able to have the support you need because there are folks that will prop you up. So one, you're developing confidence in yourself, but you also need to form connections. Number 4, character. So, so important that we teach that. It's not something that the child is automatically going to know unless we teach it. And we can't leave it to the teachers in school. We got to teach them the importance of coming on time, the importance of staying all the way through and getting your work done. No shortcuts. I tell my kids, no shortcuts. You got to get it done. You're responsible for it. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
That's
Having
right.
a fundamental sense of right and wrong. We got to teach that, you know, and remind them that they don't, especially some of our younger generation now, people think, oh, I don't need to learn that. I can Google it. No,
Yeah.
because you will get to a place where you need that resource. You need that resource. You need that place that you need to be at. So it's very, very important that we understand the importance of learning and growing. So we need to teach that. We need to teach integrity. We need to teach responsibility. We need to teach that right or wrong. These are all important things that will ensure that individual is resilient, that child retains resiliency. So remember, teach your children to care. Teach your children to display love and affection. Teach your children to be on time. Did I say that? Be on time. And stay the course. And finish on time, right? No, it's one of those skill set that we have to remind for. Go back to the rudimentary spelling. Teach them the basics. They might think, well, what do I need that for? I always say and I'm dating myself, way before computers came to be, when typewriters were the thing. Yeah, I don't know if these generation even knows what a typewriter is, right?
I'm pretty sure we know what a typewriter is.
Typewriter, right?
If you ask me like what exactly is a Walkman, I couldn't really tell you, but I like know it's a thing. So
Walkman. Oh my God, you brought us there. We gotta remember Smith Corona. That was the electric typewriter that I had. And I say that I'm gonna tell the story because my dad was very adamant about me learning how to type and wanted me to do it in high school. So I took keyboarding. So that would be keyboarding in today's world now. And if he insisted, that was one of the best things that I ever learned to do, because right out of high school, I was able to get a job in an office as a secretary and getting paid. This is going so many years back, well over 30 years ago, where at that time I was making, I think, $15 an hour in an office as a high schooler. Wow, because I knew how to type. I knew how to compose a letter. I knew how to, so these are some things that you need to teach your children. So let's go back to the basics and teach them the basics, right? That's how we form character, which is 4. Number 5, contributions. We need to teach our children how to make the world a better place. They got to contribute. They got to see that they're here for a purpose. God created them and formed them to make a difference. No matter what their capabilities are, they need to contribute and make a difference. So we need to teach them and inspire them, bring them out into volunteer events or programs and teach them that, because so that they know that I am not just here as a consumer, I am here also as a producer, right? And when they have that, and it's important because when push comes to shove and things are falling apart around them, they would know how to begin to do things on your own, right? Very important. So that's contribution. Number 6, coping. Wow. Life will happen. COVID taught all of us that things happen when we least expect it, and we have to find ways to deal with those stressful situations. So resiliency is not putting a cover over our head, but it's saying, I'm going to face those situations, but keeping in mind that I need to connect to resources to do it. So when you don't know what else to do, call for help. So I want to say that again to all of us listening in, call for help when we find that we're struggling. Right. So part of coping is really realizing that we might need to engage. So because otherwise, when we internalize it, this is where depression occurs, anger, substance abuse, all those things can happen because we're turning to something else to mask our pain. So things are going to happen to us. Things will happen to the kids. We need to teach them that. And then number 7 is control. We need to help them to know that they have a sense of their own voice. They have control to be able to make choices. Obviously, God gives us that grace to be able to do things that we need to do, but we need to teach them to have that ability to make that decision on your own. So we need to give them that control. Let them make that decision. You can guide them. I guided my kids, gave them ideas. I'm like, hey, have you considered X, Y, and Z? But ultimately, it's about them getting to decide for themselves, because you don't want them to blame you if something doesn't go right, because they're like, well, you made me do it.
Yeah.
No, we need to give them the choices, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. That's been one of my favorite phrases these days. People don't sometimes know what they don't know. So we got to expose them and give them the opportunity to decide what they don't like and what they do like, because ultimately that's how you build it. So I hope these 7 C's have been inspiring to you. So we're helping our kids to develop competency, right? That's 1. Confidence, that's 2. Connection, that's 3. Character, that's 4. Contribution, that's 5. Coping, that's 6. And control, that's 7. And as I was reflecting on that, I was saying to myself, these are the elements that I continually and I'm always looking to improve. How do I maintain that sense of confidence? It is by reading. It is by learning. How do I contribute to my society? How do I look for opportunities to make the place that I'm working, where I am, where I serve, where I minister, where I talk to people, a better place? How do I bring value? If you, one of my favorite leaders that I quote all the time is John C. Maxwell, who wrote the book 21 Laws of Leadership, right? Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he says something that I love, and it's on my email, which is that I want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference at a time that makes a difference with people who want to make a difference.
Nice.
So making a difference in my mindset means that I get to hang out with people who are making a difference.
Yeah.
That's part of contribution. So if you're listening to me, I hope that I've inspired you to say, I want to develop this character of resiliency, contribute to the community around me, make the world a better place, find ways to cope by connecting to resources that will help you to overcome the challenges that you're going through. Understand that they need to offer control to others. Don't be controlling of other people's destiny. Just because that person is your child doesn't mean that you own them. You and I are custodians. You are there as guides. We're there as mentors, but we don't control their life. They get to make that decision for themselves. So a word of encouragement, I always have to leave us with a word from the scripture, because I'm a woman of faith. I believe in the word of God. That is what inspired me to continue. So all this stuff that I'm talking about, resiliency, did not come from self. It comes from above.
That's right.
And the Psalm in Psalm 41:3 says, I waited patiently. I'm reading from the Amplified Version. I waited patiently and expectantly for the Lord, and he inclined his ear to me and heard my cry.
Yes.
He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of tumult, out of destruction, out of miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock. He steadied my footsteps and established my path. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to my God. Many will see and fear with great reverence and will trust confidently in the Lord. So he moved my feet from the miry clay and set it on a rock. That is the reason why I walk with resiliency, knowing that my feet is solidly on a rock. And that rock for me is Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
That is the reason why I keep going. That's the reason why I know that no matter what gets thrown at me, I'll find a way. One of these days, I want to tell a story about some things that I'm processing through right now, where the people who are supposed to be coming after you instead of responding in kind, when Michelle Obama said, when they come low, you just go higher.
Yes.
And you, that is turning a situation that was supposed to go negative in a positive way. It's still a testimony that's still being built. And when it's done, I'm going to share it, because every time I face a challenge, I'm like, okay, God, I need a strategy. I need your wisdom. And he does. Not the way you look at it, because the natural reaction on the natural flesh is to respond in kind. But sometimes you got to think about how could you go better, be better, do more. And resiliency does that for you. So that word is coming to you. And I hope and pray that you will use that and inspire your children, teach them, encourage them, pray for them, because as parents, that's what we're called for. As caregivers, that's what we're called for. So maybe you're a caregiver, you may not be a parent, and you're listening to me, or you mentor someone. Use these 7 C's and remind them these are the core important. And like I said earlier, didn't come up on it my own. Dr. Ginsburg, who wrote that book that I mentioned earlier, so you should check it out. He wrote the book Building Resiliency in Children and Teens, building resiliency in children and teens, and giving kids roots and wings and raising kids to thrive. So we want to raise kids that will thrive. We want to be able to say, wow, you are living the life because God is giving you that grace. So we have some things that I'm rounding up this evening. I hope this is inspired to encourage you one way or the other. We want to just remind everybody that we exist to support families facing autism and other intellectual disabilities. If there's any way that we can encourage you, we can come alongside of you, support you one way or the other, email us as info@mygoalinc.org, info@mygoalinc.org. We definitely want to get on our email list because oftentimes we share information and resources that are happening in the community. So we have a few things that's up and coming in the next few weeks. One of them is our, actually next week, we are doing an Ask the Expert that's coming up. Where we're going to be bringing somebody on, an occupational therapist, and she's going to be speaking to us. We're also going to be doing our social hour, both live and virtual. We're doing virtual social hour, but now we're also going to be doing a live one. So if you live in Central Jersey, we're going to be in Lawrenceville area, Hamilton, Lawrenceville area for breakfast. So we'll invite you to come and check us out. All that information is going to be coming up very soon. We're also having a gala event. And so if you're a family with a special needs child in New Jersey and you want to attend, please let me know, because we have individuals that donate tickets, and I'd love for you to come be a part of that. This year, I'm super excited with our lineup and looking forward to. So the Pines Manor in Edison, New Jersey is where we host our event. So if you're in New Jersey, so any of you that are listening to me, if you're interested in being a part of it, the early bird ends on October 4th. October 4th is $90 a ticket. We keep it really affordable, and it's $100 for regular bird, if you'll call it that. And obviously the sponsorships available, and all the resources, donations goes back to the families. I just said God just uses us as a tool to be a blessing. So the event is so that families can come out and have a good time. This year, I'm super excited. My DJ is one of our own, and an individual with special needs who's a DJ, and his support. I mean, he's amazing. He's called DJ Nick. So DJ Nick is going to ensure that we have a good time. That's the goal. The goal is to feature the brilliance of our children and our special needs one. So the theme is the night of the shining stars. So we want each one of us to come out and shine. And this is our 15th year of doing this, 15 years. So I'm just excited to be a part of making a difference in people's life. And I'm glad that Ms. Jean and Kyle, you joined us tonight. And thank you so much for your contribution, sharing, perseverance, never giving up. In every way, it's a reflection of the people that you are. So as we round up, I just want to release a grace onto all of you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Know that God loves you.
Yes, yes.
Got your back. There are angels that are all around you. They're called friends. They're called family. Some of them may not be related by blood, but they show up when you need them. So just remember that. And in any way and every way that I could be a source of encouragement to you, whether it's prayer, or whether it's a word, just reach out, info@mygoalinc.org, and we will respond in kind. I love you. I thank God for you. and be blessed for being here with us. And have a good night. So remember, join us for all our upcoming activities because we want you to maintain that sense of perseverance and resiliency. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, my dear. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.